and welcome to another episode of Doubl3Tap. Today we are joined by Andy, CEO of Mugen Interactive. Hey Andy, how you doing, man?
Good to see you. How are you guys?
Good, yeah. No, excited to talk about this. We're gonna dive deep into mini games, which is quite topical at the time of recording. But before that, disclosures out the way. Um, this content is for educational and informational purposes only. It's not financial advice. The opinions shared by Alex and I are our own, and we may have investments in some of the companies or assets discussed throughout the show. With that out the way, Andy, what games are you currently playing?
Oh God, uh, I have a I have more than 700 games in my Steam library right now, and I'm still slowly going through a lot of them today. But I think what got me excited recently was that Hades finally came out with two, so it's in my library, and this is something that I've started playing here and there. So, even in early access, I think it's pretty well polished, and the game's pretty nice. Um, I've was also playing AFK Journey, which is the new game launched by Lift Games. It's just to understand how their new seasonal mode, plays out. A lot of times for me, playing games has become a more of a research kind of incentive rather than actually enjoying them. The last time I actually did that was actually Breath of the Wild from Legend Zelda. So it's been a while since uh, I actually was able to grind through games without having to be more brainless. And that was actually also a time when when I just started my career not too long at Tencent as well. So as you start growing in a gaming company, one of the things you start to do is as you when you play other people's games, it's really not about you know really enjoying the game fully anymore. It's really about nitpicking everyone's mechanics and see what they did good and what they did bad. It's become a work hazard after a while.
What's your biggest critique of AFK Journey?
I think it's just I don't know. I don't really know how their season mode's gonna play out for Web two gamers, to be honest, because the idea for them is they want to for every season everything will be deleted off chain, and and then players would have to restart everything again. I think that will this kind of modes will work in Web three because for Web three the importance is not the off chain part of it; it's the on chain side of things, your assets and tokens. But for Web two gamers, their progress, their achievements is all they have left from the game. And if you actually delete that, if you take it away from them, I just don't know how the players would feel. I talked to a few people about it so far, and people are a bit mixed about how they feel about this feature. But let's see how it rolls out. But game wise, I think still the same AFK game that we all recognize back since 2018. So it's same game, nothing. It's the same feel, maybe little bit different in terms of just the view and but the overall mechanics is more or less the same.
Let's maybe start with a brief kind of background slash intro into Mugen Interactive to kind of give the listener a bit of perspective on what we're about to go on to talk about in reference to like mini games.
Sure, absolutely. So, um, I was previously working in major corporates. Started in my career in banking, but eventually ended up building and blowing things up, as I like to call it, in Tencent, where I worked at Lightspeed Studios. What Lightspeed is known for is pretty much is PUBG Mobile, but they also worked on a lot of titles along with Riot. For example, teams like League of Legends Wild Rift, and one of the last few projects I worked on there was Teamfight Tactics for mobile, which is still remains one of the top games today, globally and also in China. Uh, where I also spent a lot of time internationally working with partners as well as starting the offices. So I led the expansion in 16 for Tencent into India. So that was also the first time I actually experienced a growth in a different country, and that was actually it was actually one of the most interesting times of life to see actually how the Indians started actually consuming more data, and then leading to more content and spending more time on their mobile devices. I end up actually leaving corporate 10 years later, and well, a few not 10 years, a few years later, and then end up in fintech startups, helping people build across Southeast Asia, as well as across, and also building a digital bank along the way. Uh, so one of the things that I actually saw, and this is how Mugen Interactive came to be, was I feel that in crypto there's a convergence between finance slash fintech and also gaming. However, I feel that a lot of times people are not doing properly because people are leaning more towards the financial side of things, but rather thinking a more balanced approach. How do you actually mix these two into it?
So, Andy, one of the things that Jacqueline and I like to chat with you about is how you can kind of leverage social networks to create new experiences, specifically in games. One thing that we really like that we feel you have a lot of like color on is basically Facebook gaming and then WeChat, and maybe digging a little bit further into Discord. So, we'd love to maybe hear a little bit about how you view leveraging social networks to kind of create games and what that enables. And then maybe we can talk a little bit about TikTok and Telegram.
Historically, for a lot of social networks, it serves two purposes. One is that it is a big pool of people, so user acquisition is quite easy when you actually go to target this big pool. The second thing is the virality, the sharing side of things, because people naturally like to share. I think, and one of the things that I think TikTok became, or a lot of social networks became popular, was people were creating content on it and then sharing to massive numbers of people globally in a very rapid form. So um, this is this is why I think for social networks, why they go into gaming made a lot of sense. Now for WeChat, it went into gaming. It was an accident actually. Uh, WeChat's original mission was not to do content, but WeChat's original mission was actually just to connect people and do messaging. That was actually the original ideas from the founders of WeChat. However, I think gaming came to be because one of the things that Tencent wanted to do was actually to bring games into a big social network, similar to how they did in Facebook. But this is how they did it with a twist. They actually want to build something smaller and actually something much lighter, because for WeChat at that time and point, they don't whether they would encourage people not to stay in WeChat. They're trying to kick people out of WeChat. They're asking people not to, just use it and go away. Don't stay in here for too long. Versus if you think about social networks, the likes of Facebook or other instant messengers, they want you to stay in there as long as possible, because the more content you consume, the better they can send ads to you. And I think with Ton right now, they're actually taking the same playbook that WeChat did, where they're trying to encourage people. They're trying to encourage people not to stay in Telegram, the way I look at it, but more importantly, go come in and connect with different people, share different ideas, and then once you share it, you can just head off and do something else. But this creates a momentum where people will always want to come back and check things out.
Could you maybe elaborate on why WeChat didn't want people to spend time in the app? Like, did it help with their retention if people didn't spend as much time on a daily basis in the app? Like, can you maybe just tease that out a little bit more?
Sure. Okay. Um, the founder of WeChat, Alan Zhang, he started building a QQ Mail. So he built a mail app. So if you actually look at WeChat's Chinese name, Weixin, it means mini mail. So the design of WeChat was supposed to be mail, where you send a message and you leave. That's why even for WeChat today, you don't really have a notification. You don't really see if people had read your message or not. That was by design, the idea to discourage people from always like just staying there for too long, because like an email app, there's no point for you to stay for that long.
And did that change the way in which these like smaller kind of lightweight games were designed in WeChat? So in other words, were the games extremely lightweight or super casual? And then as people spent more time with WeChat and spent more time in the app, did the games evolve alongside basically the how the users interacted with that product?
They evolve in two forms. And so the users, there are constantly new users coming and use WeChat. But I think what has evolved is the availability of different types of monetization that was happening in WeChat, and some of them were lacking in previous parts. For example, so WeChat, uh, the mini apps originally had no forms of payment, um, because of the obvious rules that you should be respectful of the relevant ecosystems that you're with, and you should be integrated with their payments. And that actually, for WeChat for a long time, didn't really think about monetization. And secondly, they weren't actually pushing for monetization in early days because what they want is adoption, get people to start using it. But as as they introduced new ways to monetize, that actually changed the way people build applications. So when they introduced um, a lot of a lot of IAAs, which is in-app advertisements, um, a lot of people started making money from actually just showing ads. That was actually a very interesting time for China because historically, uh, a lot of the Chinese companies did not want to monetize via ads. They only want to monetize via IAP because they feel no one wants to watch ads. And that happened. So they actually, a lot of people started putting ads into the mini apps and to start making money. And the ads are very short; they're only a few seconds. But as more ways of monetization evolve, which with the introduction of IAP and actually more channels for IAA, um, people start actually thinking about bringing games to be more a mid-core and hardcore games. That so the games have evolved from something really casual like a tap to jump, or even like a draw with friends types of games, into something more like a small SLG or even small. Um, some of them are more hardcore match threes, similar to like a Candy Crush, bringing the whole thing into a mini app.
Was it the ads that enabled the new types of games, or was it there was like an ad network that WeChat had developed, which then enabled those types of games because they were now able to monetize in a different way? So, in other words, was it the game side or the WeChat side that enabled that shift?
Part of it was the game side, because it was a time where when ad channels opened up, as so previously, I think the background is that originally you were only able to use Tencent's ad network, but eventually what they added was allowing to use, say, TikTok's ad network, or allowing you to use Taobao's ad network or anyone else's other people's ad network. So they open up the whole ecosystem to more people. That brought an influx of people into WeChat and actually playing a lot of mini games. But more importantly, because the user profiles, some of them are quite different than what they have seen in WeChat historically. That actually led to people think about what are some of the better ways to actually build games that can capture this traffic. So if you think about, so at that time and point, the Chinese are really they're willing to they're willing to pay. So the payment behavior is there already. What happened? So what when you actually have more people coming in from different channels into an app and with really good payment behaviors, this is where you start thinking about, okay, maybe I need to build something more hardcore, something that would drive people to pay.
Would love to just kind of briefly hear, are there any parallels there to what we're starting to see on the Telegram side of things?
I think Telegram is naturally a good fit. In fact, a lot of times when we see Telegram today, um, the issues they're encountering is really similar to where WeChat encountered back in 16. So I feel there's a reason why you can't do discoverability for, well, you can't do an app store properly on the Telegram. One of the reasons is because the ecosystems are really cognizant of protecting their users and their ecosystem. So I'm just saying a nice form, but you guys know what I mean. Um,
Mhm.
and um, so that's why they actually need to. They want their cognizant just in case their app something happens to their app. They want to protect their users, so they won't let people discover the mini apps really easily. That happened with WeChat back then as well too, but eventually it was resolved. Um, in the early days of WeChat, you also saw a lot of more casual games, and that's I think what we're seeing today as well with Notcoin, Hamster Comeback. These are really super simple to play games, like, and a bit mindless as well. What it did really well, I think, for Telegram is it's similarly it's allowed people to share these bots really quickly. So being able to make these games viral will be much easier than, say, if a Web3 game launches outside of Telegram and tries to capture eyeballs through partnerships or collabs, and then capturing this audience and using for other purposes.
I think there's a number of valid reasons why people compare today's Telegram / Ton environment to WeChat, especially if you like rewind a few years, because not everyone is aware, but WeChat mini games launched in like 2017, but I think it was only really until like 21, 22 that things started to get like really started to heat up, and a couple hits went viral. Not to say that there weren't successful games before then, but it took a while for that traction to build. And I think in large part, to go back to what Alex was asking before, that was thanks to a lot of the third party integrations with like outside ad networks. And yeah, moving beyond just like pure referral campaigns. So I think it is also useful to maybe touch briefly on like what the differences between the two are. Like from your perspective, right? Someone who has access to uh, building games on WeChat, as well as Telegram. When you look at Telegram as a platform for crypto enabled games, what kind of gets you excited?
I think it's a new, different way to do user acquisition. Because if you think about how Telegram, where Telegram is today, their ad is really simple. It's a text that is hidden in a bunch of text, so it's discoverability. So not a lot of people would be able to see these ads very easily. I think what's interesting, all these apps become their own ad networks in the end. And what they do, what a lot of companies' strategy is really simple. I would launch 10, 20, or 30 different WeChat mini games, which can be developed with usually about 3 weeks, I would say, to develop a single game, and just go out and spread them different channels and acquire different users, and then converting them and pumping them into other apps that they're building as well. So this is, I think we gonna see a similar strategy on Telegram, where it's either you're gonna have people who's focused and dedicated to building one single application with financial incentives that will drive people in. So it's using the financialness is the way to, as a use, it's the user acquisition tool to bring people from different parts of Telegram into it, because the lack of ad network. And stars is actually one way to think about it. If you think about stars, I think what's good about it is it's a really cheap way to on-ramp people onto Telegram. So rather than you go into Sexes and buy USDT and try and transfer it into Telegram Ton's wallet, stars essentially act as a way for people, as a token for people to break on ramp like their fiat into Telegram, and from stars you can actually use it to pay other things. Even you can use it to buy tokens if you want to, and then eventually that gets people into crypto. So it's a really great way to on ramp people. Oh, by the way, maybe a fun fact here, just to take just to see why I think that user acquisition side makes sense. Um, for a lot of the genres in WeChat, it actually converts pretty well into the actual games. Example I always tell people is that for a lot of on WeChat, a lot of times you would see match 3 games, and these games actually looks really simple. It's like how would you play for Candy Crush. Believe it or not, actually, it converts pretty well into SLGs. So I've seen a good 70% conversion rate for those who play match 3 game on WeChat, converting them into SLGs. So it's a strategy. I think it's also, you're going to see something similar in Telegram today, where you're going to see people coming up with really small and simple games, and actually bringing them into their own Web3 apps as a way to do user acquisition, and the conversion rates will be quite high. I think you're going to see a lot more like hard mid-core games, games that will actually drive consumption, games that will actually get people into paying for them. That will probably happen in the next 6 months. It's much faster. It took WeChat probably a good 4 years for that to happen, but I think crypto today, it'll probably happen in the next 4 to 6 months. You'll probably see a lot more mid-core, hardcore games that's being onboarded. And what will happen eventually, I think, is these Telegram games will become the apps, the games. So rather than people build an app and have Telegram as a strategy, I think what people will do is they're going to build a full Telegram bot, and then bring these games into into actual full app that they will actually launch on PC or mobile or anywhere.
What's the bull case for Ton in this scenario? Because I think to kind of switch sides, right? Like WeChat is this like metaverse app where it doesn't matter how successful the games are, how many people they funnel out of the platform. People are always going to return to WeChat for like paying your utility bills or
Mhm.
booking a trip or whatever. Whereas with Telegram, it's kind of purely focused, I think, right now on the chat feature and like maybe trading bots for like more of the Web3 audience. Um, if we assume that at least in the short term, the vast majority of these games are going in there with the goal of like funneling users out of the platform and into their native apps. Um, and we also assume that Ton is motivated to increase their TVL. How don't you get like a conflict of interests in that situation? And yeah, so what's maybe the bull case for Ton in this scenario?
Honestly, I don't think it's a conflict of interest. I think if actually Ton does that, it's actually a brilliant move because Ton's MAU is around 900 million right now, I think. Uh, for it to grow to 1 billion,
Maybe
it,
clarify like that the Telegram, not Ton, right?
sorry, Telegram, sorry, my bad. So Telegram is MAU is about $900 million, 900 million MAU. Sorry, not dollars, 900 million MAU. And that for them to grow to 1 billion, they need to go to outside sources to acquire people in. So eventually, what would happen for a lot of these bots is that I think people might just be sharing it outside Telegram and telling people, "Hey, this thing looks cool. You should come in and actually try this out." And that will actually drive new users into Telegram. Now, what it means per ton is, I think, for because of stars and because of new, I think there's going to be new ways to on ramp money onto Telegram very soon, onto Ton very soon. Um, I think that's going to drive a lot more. That's going to put a lot of money being locked into Ton down the road.
Yeah, I guess to argue my own point, there will be some leakage, but like the natural friction of like moving your money, moving your wallet outside of
Mhm.
Ton is probably going to be a big churning point for most users. So yeah, agreed. Like provided that the inflows of users is greater than the outflows of users, then like
To be
I think it's
honest,
net positive.
people are quite people are quite sticky when it comes to money. Um, there's if there's one thing I've learned from building a digital bank back then is that people's money. It's really hard for people to move their money around, especially if you have a closed ecosystem. So for Ton, I think and being able to tie to Telegram, it's brilliant because it's a very closed ecosystem and it's discouraging. It's not getting people a lot of alternatives for them to move their money outside the ecosystem. So they will just put the money in there and just be stuck with and stick with it.
So one thing you mentioned earlier, Andy, was basically using Telegram for these like mini games, right? So you've got like Mario Party mini games in Telegram, and those kind of act as feeders or top of funnel to push people into maybe a core app or a browser game. Um, I'm curious how you think companies, or maybe you're doing this currently, are thinking through kind of the live ops treadmill and whether you're going to have maybe like a Telegram mini game team, and then you're going to have a team that develops maybe more of the core titles. Just curious, like how you plan to approach that.
Um, I think there's gonna be two strategies for people, um, and I don't think there's gonna be two teams to be honest, because it's not very cost effective. What we're going to see a lot of people do is probably outsource a lot of these development to external studios and help them build it. Um, the reason being that I think a lot of studios have these capabilities already. They have the foundation. They have built the framework of things. All they need to do is sometimes it could be just as easy as reskinning. Sometimes it could be as easy as just tweaking some of the mechanics to make it work and run a few tests to see if this is something that fits their game. So for from an operation strategy perspective, um, it's you don't see a lot of people not build in-house Telegram game companies, but you don't see they work with external companies, and you don't see a lot of these game companies pop up. I was actually in Vietnam recently, and I sat down and spoke with a lot of Telegram developers. Um, they can actually get something out in 2 weeks' time, as quickly as 2 weeks, which is much faster if you think about it, if you actually bring this production to the US, or if you bring this production to a lot of places in North Asia. That would take much longer. It's usually about 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks from what we've seen if you want to do it in North Asia properly.
Yeah, I think the live ops question is going to be an interesting take, because right now what we're seeing is, I want to say, like financially incentivized virality, where you have these incredibly simple, like, clicker games that are blowing up, partly because they're a bit of a meme, and partly because there's an underlying assumption that there's a token attached to it, so people want to farm these, and then that obviously like boosts some of the core metrics. But what we haven't seen is there's a couple, like I think Cattersons is a good case study of a team that understands live ops and monetization. But the vast majority of these games are really focused on that like first stage of viral onboarding, and then the long tail of that, or like what survives in the long tail, will be live ops and like actual monetization.
No, so the live ops thing, I think it's something that why I think the whole Telegram game will actually work really well in Asia, and not really North America or even Europe, is because I think you hit on a point where we constantly talk about. It is really hard to do live ops. It's really easy to build a game, but it's really hard to constantly iterate and constantly be aware of what's happening outside and changing the mechanics or running campaigns as needed. Because if there's one thing that we've seen today is people's attention span is getting shorter and shorter. Um, people are not really enjoying content the way they were 20 years ago, but what they are looking for is something fast, quick, and easy, and something they'd be like show off to their friends.
Yeah, I think maybe one good question there for Andy is, like Jackal was suggesting, like virality is key. You've been talking about this a lot, Andy. Do you think there's anything specific about Telegram that enables a different type of virality? Or
Not that I see right now, to be honest. That's
it's
the short answer.
so then it's really
Um,
the financial incentives or the financial levers that crypto enables, adding it to the social network that you think.
for now, I think that's the case, but I will use an example just to enlighten people. There's a mobile e-commerce app called Pinduoduo in China. It's listed in the US, and I think one of the things that they did really well was uh, a lot of the messages that they crafted when they share these news to other people was something that people are familiar with, and it actually gets people to click into it very easily. So, example, um, where if you want to share an item that you see on Pinduoduo and you want to share people to buy with you, what you when you share where you share the link into WeChat, it looks exactly like the link when they invite you to join a group. That was something people are really familiar with, and that actually got people to actually click into it very quickly. So the conversion for that was extremely high, and it became viral because people like just it's essentially inviting people to join groups, but people didn't realize that was something else. Um, I think that's something you'll see something similar on Telegram, where it starts evolving, where it starts having different formats of informing people information right now. Because I'm sure you guys have seen the forwarding feature on Telegram right now. It's a bit messy. It looks like the days of email. The way I joke that's the way I joke about it. Um, if I think when Telegram comes with less, like more interesting ways for people to actually read content or share content, the virality will actually kick in much faster than you think would.
Cool. Well, I think that just about wraps it up for today. Thanks a lot, Andy, for the conversation. It's been great to get a bit more of a deeper perspective, from like, yeah, the historic WeChat side of things, and it's been great to hear some of the insights that you've shared. Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jaco. Thanks, Alex.
The content of this video is intended for informational purposes only and should not be considered as investment advice. The views shared by Alex and I are our own, and we may hold investments in some of the companies or digital assets featured in the video.